Good evening, everyone. Tonight is Monday, April 22nd. The Londonderry Town Council call to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like everyone to please remain standing. Just remember our town employees, they over 200 that we have here in staff. We really appreciate all the hard work that they put in for our community, for our residents, those who contribute to this town. Grateful for all the hard work. Please be seated. All right. So tonight we're going to open up public comment with a proclamation for the Londonderry High School hockey team for their championship. We have Jimmy here. We'll just read it. We'll have Ted, if you could read it in, please.
Of course.
Thank you.
Yes. In honor of Londonderry Boys Hockey Team, whereas the Londonderry Boys Hockey Team, under the leadership of seniors Matt Boyan, Owen Carey, and junior Brett McKinnon, delivered a performance of excellence. Whereas, in a clash against the Wyndham Jaguars, their 5-2 victory secured the title of state champions, marking a historic first for Londonderry High School. Whereas, senior Matt Boyan, reflecting on the journey, emphasized the team's underdog status and their ascent to victory, whereas junior Brett McKinnon, in preparation for the championship game, exhibited dedication and focus, whereas senior Owen Carey instilled confidence in his teammates to seize the moment and emerge victorious. Now, therefore, let it be proclaimed by the Londonderry Town Council that it extends its highest commendation and heartiest congratulations to the 2024 Lancer varsity hockey team on the occasion of its 2024 season and its first state championship. Signed this 22nd day of April 2024 at the town of Londonderry, New Hampshire, in the witness thereof, the seal and signature of the town of Londonderry and its town council.
I was at the game. It was an amazing come-from-behind victory in the third period against the top goaltender in the state. And the kids just literally played out of their skates. It was an amazing celebration. I mean, you never saw such a enthusiastic crowd. The Londonderry crowd was probably twice the size of the Wyndham crowd. So it was a great afternoon, and it was a fantastic game. And it was enjoyable to watch these kids and just how much fun they had that night.
Awesome. Congratulations to the team, the coaches, the schools, and as well as the families for the tireless hours they've invested as well. With that, we'll move on to our next topic, discussion on the petition warrant article number 17, amend the Londonderry Municipal Code, Title 5, Administrative Code, Chapter 3, Section 1A.
Excuse me, can we find out if we're online? I mean, because it doesn't appear, I don't know if we're videoing or not.
We are good now.
And I'm hearing that we're not online, we're not live streaming.
Drew, do you mind letting us know? All right. All right, we're good. Thank you, John. All right, so with that, with all the citizens' petitions that were put forward on the March election, we felt it important to solicit feedback from the residents as to why these citizens' petitions were put forward and why they're a good idea. Wanted to hear from the public. And with that, public comment is open.
Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. I just wondered why the petitioner wasn't invited to this meeting.
I know that these were posted and properly noticed per state law.
Okay. So I want to thank you for moving forward on it because this was overwhelmingly approved by the voters. It was approved by approximately 65%. And I think one of the reasons why this was put forward is because multiple years ago there was a citizens petition to limit some of the what do they call it? Term limits. Term limits was brought forward, and the town council at that time. I don't know all the details behind it, but it was never brought forward. And then one of the town councilors at that time said that he was going to bring it forward at the state, and it never happened. So I'm not positive that that's one of the reasons why this was brought forward, but I think that may have possibly been. But I think, it was overwhelmingly approved. So I thank you for looking at it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jonathan Esposito, 5 Shelley Drive. Mr. Chairman, congratulations. I don't think I've had the pleasure of attending a meeting since you were appointed the chairman, so thank you all for the fine work that you're doing. I just wanted to speak to the agenda item here regarding amending the municipal code, effectively amending the charter to have a elected rather than an appointed planning board. I was not the author of that citizens petition. I did vote in favor of it, and there was an overwhelming citizen vote in favor of it. I can't speak for every resident in town, although there were a significant number of those who did, but at least my own reasoning for voting in favor was primarily because the planning board is really outwardly not receptive to feedback from citizens. They have stated as such that they view public comment as an opportunity for things to turn into a madhouse. Citizens have had to wait until 10:20, 10:30 at night to have the opportunity to address them, even at duly noticed public meetings where public comment should have been afforded at a more reasonable hour. And given the fact that they're not really open to soliciting a lot of feedback from the community, many of us felt that if they were directly elected by the citizens as opposed to appointed by the municipal body of Londonderry, that perhaps our voices would travel a little further in being heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ann Champa, 28 Wedgewood Drive. I just wanted to say, you mentioned about the person who put forth this warrant article. She isn't available tonight. She's dealing with a medical problem, an extreme medical problem with a family member.
I didn't bring that up.
Well, I know you didn't, but I'm just telling you why she isn't here.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Martha Smith, 38 Shasta Drive, and I agree with some of the points that Mr. Esposito made. I think that the planning board has to keep in mind what the vision of the town of Londonderry is, and without allowing public comment, they're missing a lot of what the citizens want the vision of Londonderry to be. So I don't know whether appointed or elected or different changes in the board or whatever make that difference, but I think that the citizens of Londonderry have a definite idea of how they envision this town and how they'd like to see growth in this town and things going on. So I agree that it's important to have citizen input for the planning board, and if that means elected officials will listen to us more because they're counting on our votes, perhaps that's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Excuse me. Good evening. John Wilson. I live on Tranquil Drive. I don't really have a strong opinion of this one way or the other, whether we leave it the way it is or we go with a fully elected board. But one of the things I thought about, which may be a solution to this problem, is to actually have a number of people on the board that are elected and a number of people on the board that are appointed. That way we can have some people with experience, perhaps with the town government and so on involved, but we can also have elected people. And I would suggest that if we were to do that, we would, I don't know how many people we'd have on the board, but we would have a majority of them elected, okay? And then we would also need, I think, a strong, over and above what the state generally says, a strong conflict of interest document that everybody would sign for this. But that way, I think we can have the best of both worlds. We can have some structure from the town, and we also have people that are elected, and there's no reason that we can't do that kind of a board. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Jake Butler, Chair of the Planning Board. Wanted to give you a quick update on our last meeting as well as some meetings coming forward here. The April 10th meeting, we had a public hearing on the Technology Hill PUD. After their presentation from the applicant, discussions with the board, town staff, as well as input from the public, the board elected to continue the hearing to a special meeting that's going to be held on Thursday, May 9th. The PUD will be the only agenda item on this meeting. We have a couple larger projects coming up on the 1st of May. The first one being a 96-unit multifamily development on Gilchrist Road. This was continued originally for March 6th. The second is a public hearing on a site plan and CUP for an 89,000 square foot behavioral health facility in the Gateway Business District. Couple redevelopment things around town. I'm sure everybody's noticed there's a few different sites going on that are pretty visible. The first one is the old Remax building that's home to a new Chase Bank. They've broken ground. And the second one is the foundation has been poured over at an apartment building next to the Londonderry Freezer Warehouse, which is next to Giovanni's. And after a lot of conversation with our attorney, the planning board is going to be reading their rules of procedure again. As you know, we've been working on them for a couple months now. Wanted to touch base just real quick on the public comment side of things. I can't stress enough that there is public comment on everything that is a public hearing that comes to the planning board. So any development that's coming to town has a public hearing through our process. At that public hearing, there's public comment. That is when the public has time to comment. And you'll notice that at this the meeting that just happened with the PUD, there was public comment, as there is at every public hearing, and that's been continued to a new meeting. So, anybody have any questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment?
You going up on this? I'm going up on something else.
Richard Belinsky, 89 Hall Road. Tonight you're going to have a resolution that you're going to be voting on, 2024-6, to accept a grant for another full-time detective. If you're going to take comment during that resolution, I can wait. Otherwise, I want to bring up my concerns now.
Would that be a public hearing, correct?
No.
Under a public hearing.
Or,
It's under a public hearing, yes.
Oh, it is.
so yes, we would.
All right, then I'll wait, as long as you're going to take.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you. Anyone else?
About the warrant article, and Champa 28 Wedgewood Drive, about the
you.
warrant article. I think the people voted. They were expressing their opinion there, and it was overwhelming. And whichever way you folks decide, just remember that. They spoke. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? On that particular thing? On this particular thing?
yet to hear anybody tell us why this is a good idea. We've been doing it the same way for 30 years. They're a quasi-judicial, state statute-regulated board. The attorneys have advised them that public comment's not a good idea, and they've been advising them that for a number of years. They have public comment on every ordinance they do, every regulation they change, every public hearing they have. So if the reason for doing this is public comment, that seems to have been resolved. I mean, certainly can continue to look at it, but the way that it's stated, it doesn't tell people why it's a good idea. Why after 30 years of not having a problem and having almost virtually no lawsuits, and a number of the elected boards in the state have multiple lawsuits, the most recent one being Brookline losing a $610,000 lawsuit, and now the developer can build whatever they want. I mean, I'm not saying we should do anything, but I think we need to do a much deeper investigation of why this is a good idea.
Thank you. Are you coming up to talk about this?
Just one more thing that I would like to say about this, yes.
I have concerns with coming up repeatedly for the same topic if you've already spoke.
Okay, I just want to ask why the attorneys advise against, why do the attorneys advise against having an elected planning board or public comment?
They did not advise against having an elected planning board that I'm aware of.
Public comment?
Because they're a quasi-judicial, state-regulated board. The saying is that you're introducing topics that, are not, for example, someone would come in and influence the board saying something that hasn't even been presented yet. And in accordance with what the attorneys have told the planning board over the years is that's undue influence. Let the people go through the process. Have a public hearing. Listen to what the people have to say. Make your decisions based on what people are presenting to you, not on innuendos and rumors.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please. Is this about this topic? Yes. And I do ask that we...
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, Ann.
I've been a member of the planning board for 10 years. Ann Ciampa, 28 Wedgewood Drive.
I do kindly ask, if you're talking about this topic, I don't want to have a continued back and forth.
No, I don't want to. I
don't want to have a continued back and forth. Are you talking about something new or talking about this citizens petition?
Something I haven't told you before.
Ann.
I said when I became a member of the planning board.
There are several people in this room that probably would like to talk.
Okay.
Respectfully, I do ask for you to refrain comments, as we have already had. You had already come up and had public comment and spoke about this.
It's directly about this.
I understand that. You already came up and you spoke directly about this.
And I just want to say that when I became a member, I went for training by the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and Attorney Buckley there stressed that we should have public comment during the meetings. Maybe if you can have them explain what that public comment, not during public hearings, but just a public comment to express their feelings about something or another, or just bring up a topic they want us to look into or something. Could you please have that defined then? Because he came even here in this room and talked about public comment. So when I found out the current attorney is against it, I'd like to know, how does that differ from how he feels?
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Anybody have anything else they would like to add for public comment? Seeing none. Okay.
Dave Wally, Director of Public Works. I just want to take this opportunity to brief the board a little bit about the stop signs, additional stop signs in 3 different intersections that were approved for it's commonly referred to as Old Mammoth Road. I've been fielding emails and inquiries as well as the town manager and other staff, so I figured I'd take advantage of the public comment tonight, just give a quick brief update. Just to run through the timeline, as you recall, November 6th, we had a citizen's petition brought forward about installing some kind of new traffic pattern on that stretch of road between Nashua Road and Page and Grenier Field intersection. And on Monday, December 4th, the then town councilor, Jim Butler, gave a presentation on things that he has been made aware of. This has been a long, ongoing discussion that emanated out of the Traffic Safety Committee. And ultimately, after review by staff and other responders, first responders and whatnot, evaluating that intersection, a consensus was agreed to on December 18th. So at that point in time, winter was well underway. I'll be talking a little bit about the winter season later on this evening. But, you can't go and put up stop signs in the middle of winter and whatnot. We have to have proper and appropriate notification of that. The ground's frozen. Obviously, we can't paint stop bars when we've already salted on roadways and whatnot. And to complicate it a little bit further, there's an island in front of the senior center that has granite curbing that needs to be extended 50 feet to the north as well, which complicates matters for the Page Foxglove Street stop sign, because that entire corner is paved from the parking lot right up to the street. So in order to properly put that stop sign in, we're extending that. And then the stop sign will be at the end on the bowl point of that island. So prices, I was working on that in February. We solicited 3 different vendors. We have the prices. We spoke to them. We were getting all geared up and excited because we were having a relatively easy winter. And then Mother Nature had different plans at the end of March and at the early beginning of April. So the vendors' employees didn't report back to work until April 1st. Obviously, their schedules were a little bit mixed up as well with that weather. We've been out there for the last 3 weeks cleaning up that disaster that took place on April 3rd through the 5th. And so you'll be seeing us out there next week starting to do some dig safes, laying out that island. We're in constant communication of maybe we can get moved up. We are penciled in towards the end of May for them to come and do that island. And then that'll allow us to put them all up at the same time uniformly. We may put some up in advance, bag them, get our roadway signs out at the end of the road, notifying people of when the traffic patterns will be changing, tentatively for the end of May. Certainly, I don't see any reason any longer than June 1st that'll all be in place. So I just wanted to brief the board on that because I know it's been a long, ongoing subject, and there's a lot of people wondering why we're not out there. It's beautiful out, and there's no more frost in the ground. But there's a lot of complex coordinating to getting this all accomplished. So that's it.
So the beard is shaved. Does that mean no more snow for the
That's
year?
it. That's it. When the beard's off, there's no more snow.
Okay.
We're going to get the chief on board with that next.
The athletic director's here now.
Yes, thank you. And with that, we'll close public comment. I would like to call Jimmy up.
Wait, I have a question. Are we having regular public comment now? That was public comment on that particular thing. What about regular public comment?
We can have regular public comment. We'll reopen public comment.
Sorry.
Name and address, please.
Yes, I got that part down. Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. So because of all the charter discussion and municipal this and that stuff, I started looking at the charter. I've taken a long, hard look at the charter. And I've come up with some very interesting facts that have concerned me. Article 3.2, adoption of rules. Since public comment is not mentioned in the charter, but is part of the town council rules, there appears to be absolutely no reason why the town council cannot just vote to include public comment at the end of the meeting as well as at the beginning. This warrant article was passed by 74% of the 385 voters casting their vote. I urge you to do this as soon as possible for the people you serve. And Chad, didn't you do that for the budget committee when you were on the budget committee?
We continued the practice of having public comment at the beginning and the end.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Secondly, Article 6 of the town charter, conflict of interest, 6.2. I'm going to quote it to you because you need to know. 6.2. Hang on, I have it here. 6.2. I'm only going to read Part A and then 6.3, Part A. Part A, any elected or appointed official or employee of the town who has financial interest, direct or indirect, in any planned or existing contract, job, work, or service to be performed in the town, or voluntary sale of town land, materials, supplies, equipment, or other property shall make full disclosure of such interest to the town council and manager prior to the town's deliberative on any such matter. 6.3a, no elected or appointed officer or employee of the town shall take part in a decision concerning the business of the town in which that officer or employee or member of his or her family directly or indirectly has a financial or other gainful interest which may affect his or her vote in favor or against that business, aside from his or her salary, such as officer or employee, greater than any other citizen or taxpayer. I did check with a lawyer about this because the last part I didn't understand. It basically says that if you're trying to negotiate your own salary, at that point you can talk, okay? And so the reason why I bring that up is because, hang on, Sloopy. It appears that an elected official has for years been in violation of this section of the charter by voting a family member's raise that has been part of the budget. 8.7 states that we cannot, 8.7 of the charter states, right here, violations and penalties. All willful violations of provisions of this charter, unless otherwise provided, are here declared to be misdemeanors, and all such violations and all violations of town ordinance for which no other punishment is provided shall be punished by a fine in record with state statutes. So I wanted to bring this to your attention because I have a concern. We cannot use the charter when we want to and then not use it when we don't want to. It's either a charter we use or a charter we don't. Finally, it's been a year since we had the reorganization of the planning department. And we have a website that does not provide the public with information that it did a year ago, which I have discussed with Kelly, and I'm hoping we're coming to a solution to that. And it is my understanding that we have an individual from the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission coming back at the exorbitant rate of over $125 an hour. It appears that the reorganization only provided a more costly and less transparent outcome for the citizens of the town.
Ms. Perez, you have 15 seconds left. Or your 5 minutes.
Okay. So that's what I wanted to say. And once again, that's unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Thank you. Anyone else? Name and address, sir.
Jonathan Esposito, 5 Shelley Drive. I know this isn't a question and answer session. I just wanted to propose a future agenda item like the one that we just held for warrant Article 17 regarding amending the municipal code for the planning board. We did have 1,775 residents vote at the March election that they were not in favor of the current town manager plan. Another several hundred citizens chose to undervote due to a lack of clarity with that warrant article, who, after surveying and having the opportunity to speak to some of them, expressed that they also may not be in favor of the current town manager plan, but did not have the opportunity to properly exercise their vote in that regard because of the warrant article being unclear. So I would like to request that the town council put as a future agenda item at a public hearing an opportunity to have this kind of similar public comment and input as to why some residents may be not pleased with the town manager plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, I'll close public comment. This time I'd like to have our athletic director, Jimmy Lonzo, come up, please, and be presented with this proclamation in honor of the Londonderry boys hockey team. Ted, Mind reading this again?
You'd like me to read it again?
I would, please.
Sorry, did you read it before I got here?
We did.
Sorry, I was at the volleyball game. Just finished
Completely-
up. I ran across the street.
Completely understandable.
Sorry.
No problem. Here we go again.
Sorry.
In honor of the Londonderry Boys hockey team, whereas the Londonderry Boys hockey team, under the leadership of seniors Matt Boyan, Owen Carey, and junior Brett McKinnon, delivered a performance of excellence. Whereas in a clash against the Wyndham Jaguars, their 5-2 victory secured the title of state champions, marking a historic first for Londonderry High School. Whereas senior Matt Boyan, reflecting on the journey, emphasized the team's underdog status and their ascent to victory. Whereas junior Brett McKinnon, in preparation for the championship game, exhibited dedication and focus. Whereas senior Owen Carey instilled confidence in his teammates to seize the moment and emerge victorious. Now, therefore, let it be proclaimed by the Londonderry Town Council that extends its highest commendation and heartiest congratulations to the 2024 Lancer varsity hockey team on the occasion of its 2024 season and its first state championship, signed this 22nd day of April 2024 at the town of Londonderry, New Hampshire, and witness thereof the seal and signature of the town of Londonderry Town Council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Heck of a job from the students who won the Division I, the championship title. Great job to the families for getting them that practice early in the morning, late at night, on weekends, for the coaches and the students themselves. So thank you very much, and definitely please pass our gratitude along. If you'd like to have any remarks.
I'm sorry that Coach Bears couldn't be here. He's on vacation during April break here. So I'm here for him, and they did do a great job, and people don't realize what the hockey team goes through with those late night practices and then the quick turnaround to school the next morning. They weren't perfect. There was ups and downs throughout the year, but they played their best hockey, and they were extremely exciting to watch throughout the year. They were, for those that saw them, they know what I'm talking about. They were it was great to watch them, and they really peaked at the end, which was the best. And congrats to Coach Bears and the team for bringing home the school's first ever title in hockey. So hopefully many more to come.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Yes. Thank you.
Hey, Jimmy.
Yeah. Jimmy, you want to have a congrats? You guys want to bring it in? Yeah. Thank you. All right, moving on. I'll accept the motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. Resolution 2024-04, acceptance of unanticipated revenue. Town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a resolution under RSA 3195B to accept $40,637.86 in grant funding, that being for cold weather outwear gear for the Southern New Hampshire Special Operations Unit.
All right, this is public hearing. Is there any comment? Any comment from the board? What do you want to do?
I'd like to move to approve Resolution 2024-04.
All right, a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. Resolution 2024-05, acceptance of unanticipated revenue. Mr. Malaguti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a resolution under RSA 3195B to accept $89,777 in grant funding, this time for infrared illuminators for the Southern New Hampshire Special Operations Unit.
All right, thank you. Public hearing. Is there any public comment? Anything from the council? Seeing none, I'll accept the motion to adopt Resolution 2024-05.
Motion to approve Resolution 2024-05.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. Motion passes. Resolution 2024-06, acceptance of unanticipated revenue for 31:95, Section B, 3A. Mr. Malaguti.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Under that statute, this is a resolution to accept $178,000 in total grant funding, above grant funding that was already awarded. So this is $112,000 on top of that, bringing the total to $178,000. And this is to stand up a program under the Comprehensive Opioid Stimulant Substance Use Program to combat those issues. It would be funding for a drug detective, a detective to work in those areas. And it entails a decision whether, and I suggest the council have this discussion tonight so that expectations are clear moving forward. Similar to the SAFER program, this is funding for 1 year, possibly 2 years. And the council should be very clear what the expectation is and what the consensus is moving forward when that funding is expended. So that is the program. The Chief of Police is here to talk about it if the council has any questions. But I would just suggest that the council is clear on that point that I just mentioned.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? Sir.
Okay, Richard Belinsky, 89 Hall Road. And this is going to be similar to what Mike just said. When the SAFER grant money for the fire department ran out, there was no mechanism to keep funding those positions. And that money was just put into the default budget. This isn't me saying so. I did my homework and found out from the finance department. The way I looked at that is this year we funded 4 more positions. It was on a warrant article. That's fine. But that money is really covering the 4 that we never had funding for after the SAFER grant ran out. So my concern here is this looks like it runs through, I'm assuming, June 30th of 2025. If we're going to keep this detective on, I'm not saying whether we should or shouldn't do this. Where's the funding coming from? Are we just going to bury more in the default budget and people don't know about it? Or are you going to write this detective up as a 1-year contract? Or another alternative would be to write up a 1-year contract with a caveat in the contract that that position will continue through a warrant article in, I believe it would be March of 2025, and let the people vote if they want to continue funding this. We need to start being transparent, because the SAFER grant positions after that money ran out were never funded through a warrant article that I can find. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I did check with the finance department, and they were just dumped into the default budget. That's not transparency. That's burying stuff. That's not how you budget. So let's be perfectly clear how this is going to be funded if you should accept it, when it runs out. No more surprises. For years this was being done and nobody was calling anybody on it. Now you're going to start getting called on everything because I'm going to look at it and other people are looking at it. So you can, if you want to pass this tonight, pass it with, put an addition in there that it's got a 1-year contract, or a 1-year contract with the caveat that there'll be a warrant article in March of 2025 to continue the funding through the taxpayer. Otherwise, you're not being fair with the taxpayers.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? This time I'd like to hear from the Chief of Police. Chief, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Hope all is well. First off, a couple quick things that Mr. Belinsky has pointed out that are not right. First of all, this has nothing to do with the SAFER grant. I have nothing to do with the SAFER grant stuff, nor do I have anything to do with the fire department personnel. Number 2, transparency. It's my favorite word. I love to talk about it. The word about transparency does not mean we're trying to hide anything up here. We're not trying to hide anything at all. Here's what we're doing with this program. So we've been working on this COSAP program now for close to a year. And during this program, we've assigned 1 detective, the detective sergeant, to help out with this program. This program is part of outreach with our community. We love to talk about helping our community. We hear from everybody in this room today. We hear it from our town council and our leaders. We talk about doing the right thing in Londonderry, leading the way. We try that. This wasn't something that we've created to hide or bury a position to not be transparent with our voters. This is a program that's working, statistically shown to work. This is a program that we've been doing for close to a year with Sergeant Olson, reaching out to people who have overdosed, who have an addiction problem, for alcohol, for youths. There is no age limit. Now, I would say this, Mr. Belinsky did not reach out to me, so we didn't have dialogue on this. I will talk to him after the meeting just so we can be on the same page about this. In New Hampshire in 2022, there was over 400 overdose deaths. We have our share here too. We are not immune from overdose or death.
Excuse me, Chief. Could you please ask the back of the room to be quiet? I can't hear the chief.
Thank you.
So, I'll do that a little bit straight on me here. So one of the things of concern was that while we do have detectives, we used to have 5. I have 4. 1 runs juvenile and 3 do all our other crimes. All our burglaries, all our thefts, credit card, ID fraud, sex assaults, high-end theft rings, things of that nature. And they do backgrounds. They do polygraphs. They set up testing. They're very busy. So this program forwards the community. Has nothing to do with me. Has everything to do with the community. Providing a service to help people in our community who pay taxes too, who come to the police, who go to the fire department, who come to you all in a moment of need or a problem with their family member and ask us to help. This program is about networking. It's about helping people with substance abuse, mental health challenges, recovery and assistance, community outreach, working with local groups, formally and informally, like CLM and Derry, local coalitions, collaborating with healthcare providers, schools, and other agencies and businesses in our community. Isn't this what you want your police to be doing? I think so. If anybody here had a loved one who has an addiction problem, who's ever died of an overdose, or a family member that's committed suicide because they can't get help, you would say, where were you when this came out? People would say, as they always do to us, where's the grant? We love grants until it's time to do our pony up side of it. This isn't a one-kind match. This is up to 2 years, like the town manager said. 2 years, up to 2 years. Maybe we don't get it in year 2, but in year 1, we're going to get it. We're doing it already on a part-time basis, and he's busy. I think that the word transparency, again, is a very good word. If in a year and a half from now or 2 years from now, we didn't see the numbers that were provided, I have no reason to not be transparent with the community and say, we don't need it. We're going to go back to a part-time, assign someone to help. I'm not going to stand up here and lie to you that I need something or make it seem like this is a big facade. They came to us. They asked us to look into this program because in other areas in the state it works. We're trying to get ahead of these things. We always talk about these things in past councils, as you would probably remember, sir. We've talked about overdoses and what we're doing to help. So I'll stand here and say this. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen a year or 2 from now. But if we save or help one family, someone recover, we get them on the right path, is it about being transparent then? I think so. So, you know, as Mr. Belinsky said, he'd like you to think about this when you vote on it tonight. So would I. You know, I would too. Because if this works, it's a win for everyone in this community. If we don't do it, I'll come back here and say that we didn't do it and I told you that we should have. Because that's my job as the police chief. I said it to the budget committee, I'll say it to you all again. I won't come here for wants. I come here for needs. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief.
No problem.
All right, Council, what do you say?
I just have one quick question, either for the chief or for Mike. So if this program works, which I support, I want to fully say I support it. If this program does work, to answer Richard's question, it will add a person to the budget, though. Is that correct?
So here's...
I just want to be transparent so that...
Yeah, I know. Again...
I fully support this program. I'm voting.
Sir, it's a great question, and you know what? I'm a little passionate about this because we've We know families in town.
Yeah.
We're the ones that go to these things. So the reason why we chose to do it this way is simple. Pulling another officer off the street is not the answer. Taking an SRO out of the school is not the answer. So in order to build this program up and see if it's going to work, I got to dedicate one person solely to this. We've never done this proactive step. Police are mostly reactive.
Yep.
So by putting somebody in the detective unit, they would be at the leisure of the schedule that we need them to fulfill for that person or that person of need. Now, what would happen with that would be...
Pardon me, can you please keep it down in the back? I'm having a hard time hearing the chief. Thank you.
So what that would mean would be this first year they would be assigned to the detective division. That's their sole function. They also work with the state. They're going to work with the other partners in this program. And then what would happen, let's say that didn't work out. Well, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I can't keep the person detectives. I can put my personnel wherever I want. And we had 5 detectives before in that unit. We used to do a lot of proactive drug activity and things like that in our community. We have 4. Our work has not gone down. And would I keep someone in there? If it wasn't a detriment to the patrol division, then I wouldn't. Excuse me. If it did cause a detriment, then I would remove them back if we didn't get the grant accepted and or if it didn't get funded thereafter. I have no problem coming to the town council or a budget committee or anybody after the grant was expired, pitching the idea or talking about it again. I'm okay with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is a public hearing. Name and address, sir.
Jonathan Esposito, 5 Shelley Drive. I just wanted to take the opportunity to clarify a couple of citizen concerns that were raised by another citizen in the room tonight. I think everyone is on the same page that we want the police department to have the resources that they need to serve some of the critical needs in the community, and that grants are a great way to do that. However, with the understanding that it was not the police department, we have seen in other departments and other offices of the town government where employees have come on as grants. Those grants expire. It then essentially is an unfunded liability that then becomes funded by the taxpayer. It becomes part of our default budget. And while we want the police department to have the resources that they need to meet the critical needs in the community, we appreciate that they're being proactive, but we do have to be proactive in how and whether or not we're going to budget for this in the future, because when we have folks who are on fixed incomes or whose incomes are not stretching as far as they used to, or the significant body of seniors that they have in the town, if their tax bill gets so high that they are then priced out of residing in Londonderry, they're not going to have access to that resource of that detective or that individual being available if they do have a crisis or a family member who has a drug concern or something else that the police department can attend to. So we do just need to take a balanced approach with this. And I don't think anyone intended to suggest that the police department is less than transparent either, just that they've had to do creative budgeting in the past. I did graduate Leadership Londonderry in 2023. I've heard from Chief and others how the town has perhaps not been receptive about, raising a maintenance budget, so they've essentially had to pay for the HVAC needs by the unappointed staffing that they've had. Those kind of things create a lot of citizen confusion. They don't add to the citizen perception of things, but I don't think anyone was trying to suggest that the police department was dishonest. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just to add some clarity to the mechanism that we're talking about here. So I think that, the safer example has been discussed here tonight. The finance director went back after the last town council meeting and watched the video of, and I think there have been 2 safer grants that have been awarded, and watched the video of at least one of those sessions where a similar discussion to what's transpiring tonight occurred. And there was a similar discussion about, look, this money isn't forever. It's going to run out, and the expectation is that we're not going to lay off firefighters. Let's be very clear that there is no requirement that once the grant funding is expended, that the town council needs to continue with the program, as the chief said. Particularly if the need isn't there, this is a trial period. But let's be very clear that it is part of the default budget. And it's part of the default budget, which I have up here, as a contract or an obligation previously incurred. The default budget is you take as a starting point the level of services and the appropriations, therefore, from last year, and then you adjust it up or down by these various items. So I agree, based on conversations that I've had with counselors and based on my own perception of the issue, there needs to be a very clear understanding coming out of this meeting whether we're going to continue with these positions after the grant funding expires or not. But let's also be clear that the council can make budgetary choices each budget cycle. The council can add positions. The council can remove positions from the budget by way of the operating budget. And that's the distinction between the operating budget and the default budget. So if the council wants to fund the police department 2 positions lower, they can do that by adopting an operating budget and proposing it to the residents that does exactly that. So yes, these are all important things to consider and to discuss. But just to provide a little additional clarity, it is part of the default budget. The council should have a discussion and emerge with a consensus about what happens after that. And I'm happy to take any of the council's questions on any of those finer points.
As the person who was here when we had town meeting, because with no disrespect, none of you were here, is that when we had town meeting, we had one budget. We would talk about each position, we would talk about each piece and everything else. When we moved and changed the charter to SB2, which I will continue to say to this day is bad legislation. It's terrible legislation. It should be amended and fixed. But when we moved to that, the council at that time made a decision. Didn't require us to do it. No law tells us we have to do it. But that if we wanted to add headcount, and it started with SROs, that we would put them on the ballot and have the people tell us if they want to increase the services in the town. It was an operational political decision to do it that way. Very clearly. When we had SAFER grants, it was discussed with our attorneys, with the auditors, with the state. What does the default budget mean? If you bring these services on, their conclusion, coming back to the council, is that it would become part of the default budget. And that's always been what the policy has been since we moved to SB2. Now, people may say that's not transparent. That's just not completely, what we went about doing. We were very transparent. Outside of Mr. Malaguti, there's no other attorneys in this room or CPAs that I'm aware of. Those are the people that we listened to. Those are the ones that gave the council the advice. And that's how we went forward. Now, if the council wants to do something different, you can do something different. But that's the advice we were given in the past. So to say that anybody was not being transparent is just not the case. Thank you.
Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. May I ask a question of the police chief?
Directed to the chair.
As long as it's directed through the chair, please.
I'm sorry?
As long as it's directed through the chair, please.
My kids grew up with dare and just say no, and I guess that's not around anymore. Does this grant, do these people go into the schools at all, or do the resource officers do any of the dare type or just say no type stuff in the schools?
So what I heard the chief say this evening, and I couldn't
hear everything.
Thank you. Well, Chief, I'll have you come up in a moment. But what I believe I heard the chief say this evening is that they'll partner with the other resources that we have in the community. So I'll allow an opportunity for Chief to come up and speak to that. But from my understanding, they partner with the different resources in the community, the schools, those who are having an opioid crisis or addiction, they work with them on that. Chief, do you want to comment on that?
My question is the training for the kids in the school being done through the police department? Because I think there's a big difference between a police officer in uniform coming into an elementary school and talking about don't get involved in drugs, and with no disrespect to teachers, and the difference is with a teacher who you see every day saying that. And I think because of that, I think the DARE program and the Just Say No programs that were conducted by police officers were they were a good thing, and I'm sorry to see that they've gone away. So we're going to get cannabis in this state, which is just going to open another whole can of worms. So, so therefore we need this. So,
thank you, Ms. Perez. Chief.
So as Ms. Perez mentioned, yes, the DARE program, it still exists out there. We haven't done the DARE program for a very long time. I can't recall when, maybe the early 2000s we stopped using that program. There are different programs out there that the SROs do engage with youth, everything from bullying to some of these topics. Specifically, not DARE. But this program here is going to allow this detective, and to your point, I understand loud and clear, we don't look like the most approachable people with these terrible looking things on.
No, I think the kids react
right.
better to you.
So I get where she's coming from. So the officer assigned to this would be in plain clothes, would be in clothing like this, going to the schools, talking to clergy and local churches for people that have issues there too. Some of our local hospitals that have an issue, they want to forward some information or put us in contact with a patient who's looking for some help, as well as other communities. Like when we do other community engagement programs, this would be one of those things that we would have potentially something like an open house or information night on information for people or families that have someone in their family they want to help guide in a direction of help from an opioid addiction. That's what we're going to plan to do. Other communities such as Laconia and Belmont have this program already. Lots of work to do on it, and that's why, as we said earlier, it would be one person assigned to it for now. And programs, it's one of the things that I have in my little brochure there, not brochure, but in my packet about information on that is just that, outreach, lots of outreach. And I think that part of this program, if it's up and running, is the way we present it will have an impact on how it's received in our community. So that's one of the things that we would be working on is the social media press, putting this out there about this program now in the works for the community.
All right, thank you. What does the council want to do?
This isn't being televised?
It's not on the normal channel. It's on, if I may, Mr. Chair.
It is on YouTube as well as other channels.
It's on CTV.
CTV.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
CTV.
All right, council.
So we talk about, that we should make a decision about, whether or not this goes into the default budget, which goes against everything every council has ever done, that we don't encumber future councils with the decision of today. If a future council wants to eliminate those positions or take that service away from the town, then that should be up to that future council. It's not a decision.
Excuse me. Please. Thank you.
So what I'm saying is that, if you're going to make a decision for this, that's great. But if you're going to encumber a future council with a decision tonight, it's not the way the council's operated in 50 years.
So I just wanted to say it again, just because I think the distinction is important. This will add it to the default budget, but this does not handicap us, nor does it force us to keep these positions on. We could remove it from the operating budget. So just to be clear, we are not.
That's correct. Now, bear in mind that typically the historic practice has been that the operating budget, we've talked a lot about that we've been in default for 10, 15 years. That's not technically correct, because what we've done is we've proposed an operating budget that is less than the default budget, and therefore the operating budget takes effect. So, but yes, if an operating budget is proposed lower, or that doesn't contain funding for this position, the council can do that. They can present an operating budget that is lower than the default budget, and if adopted by the residents, that's what becomes operative.
Yeah, and I fully support this position too. I just want to be clear, because this is going to come up again with other things, and I want people to know that we're not handicapping ourselves or signing on to that.
You have it exactly right.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, the council can also put a budget out that's $1 million higher than default, which has happened on the school side multiple times, and the voters have approved it. So you're not encumbered by having to stick to the default number.
Any other questions from the council? All right, with that, I'll accept the motion to adopt Resolution 2024-06.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
A second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Resolution passes. Chair votes in the affirmative. I'll accept the motion to close public hearings.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes in the affirmative. Public hearing is now closed. Ordinance 202-02. Fire Department rules, regulations, first reading. Do we have to reopen a public hearing? Is that correct?
No, you would take a motion to waive the first reading, but if I may, just Mr. Chairman, by way of explanation, and the Fire Department will be here to present this at the next hearing, is the fire code as it's been adopted by Londonderry doesn't contain a lot by way of permits, plans, inspections, sort of the Brian Johnson side of Division Chief Johnson side of the house. This builds that out. It provides additional oversight and updates some fees. And so, as I said, they will be here at the next meeting to explain that further.
Thank you. All right, so with that, I'll accept a motion to waive the first reading for ordinance 2024-02.
So moved.
We have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. DPW Master Plan Update and Review. Director of Public Works, Dave Wally. Sir, good evening again.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Again, my name is Dave Wally, Director of Public Works, and I'm here to, what I'll start off with is just a brief recaps of the winter. Now that it is officially over, we've established that. We had 14 weather events this winter that began way back on November 21st with a 2-inch snow event, and then ended, as we all know, on April 5th with an 8-inch of heavy, wet, packed snow, which resulted in multiple downed trees, wires, and made it complicated to move around town. Making that total winter operational season 137 days, and we are glad the end of watch is over on that. It resulted in 24 treatment operations of either straight salt or salt-sand mixture, and resulted with us having to plow 8 times for a total accumulation of 43 inches. Winter is over, as I said, but there is ongoing work that is not done yet. We've been at it for about 3 weeks now on clearing the trees and debris and what have you. There's still a lot of work to go as far as lawn damages and mailbox repairs and washout, shoulder work, and what have you. So winter takes a pretty hard beating on the roads and the shoulders and things around town. So the crews are out there working very diligently to try and get things back in as best shape as we possibly can. On that last event, I would like to thank, thank you. I would like to thank both Chiefs Butler and Bernard. We had some awesome communication going on during that event. That's a very tricky event. And when first responders can't get to where they need to be, us as first responders understand the importance of that. And we want to make sure that police, fire, paramedics can get to where they need to be. And so when we know that there's a road closure or we haven't gotten there yet, we were in constant communication, and then add to that having Eversource and other utility companies in town. And when they get here and they finally get their resources in the community, they want to be able to move. Sometimes you often hear of units sitting in parking lots and waiting, and sometimes while they're resting, as they are mandated to do so, or they can't go up in the buckets because the wind is too strong or it's too dark or whatnot, they'll do some of their evaluating of the town in those times in period. But when we're out and about, we want to make sure that when they can get moving, that they can get around, and the best way to do that is through constant communication. So I just really wanted to point that out, that the communications between the 3 departments was outstanding. I want to thank the counselors. I heard from a great deal of you and the town manager for their support. Again, it was a difficult situation, and we were grateful that everybody got through it unscathed, unhurt. Things can be fixed and put back to normal, but when people get injured, it's difficult when you know that your employees are out there engaging in the dark, in the wind, and you're wearing your safety gear and your ear protection, so you may not hear something over your head or whatnot, and you're trying to clear things. So it's dangerous, but we're just glad that everybody's okay. So I just, lastly, in closing on that, I'd just like to thank all of our workers at the DPW. We got through the winter down two people. One is serving on the southern border right now for the National Guard, and we have an open position, which we have gone through another hiring process. We did one in the fall, and we did one now to no avail. So anybody out there with a CDLB, please go to the town's website, look up the HR, and please apply.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, real quick, how is your communication and as well, hopefully, the fire chief's communication with the Eversource representative? Hopefully it went
fantastic. Towards the end of the event, we had an opportunity to get together with the departments with Eversource, and I apologize, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but I do have his business card. Kept that one close to the chest. So they were excellent, and they were very pleased with their ability to get in town, and that they were pleasantly surprised at how quickly they can move around. So you put a chainsaw and a plow in some people's hands, and they can get things moving along pretty quickly. So,
and from what I hear, I believe also one of our, directors or VPs had a meeting at, I believe, the Scobie Pond station as well.
I believe so. Yeah, we were out towards the southern end, but yeah. Mm-hmm. And just lastly, Denise and Donna, our administrative assistants who field all the phone calls, they're kind of our front door or doorstep, if you will. And, you know, people get a little frustrated and panicked in situations like that. And I just really want to thank them. I believe Administrative Assistance Day is this week sometime. I believe it's Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. And I just wanted to thank them, too, both, because they do a great job at dealing with difficult phone calls. And you know, people will call and say, well, they haven't come to do this yet. Where are they? We're coming. You're on the list. We'll get to you. We just need a little bit more time, a little bit more patience. So thanks to the both of them as well. So with that said, I gave this presentation once before last year around the same time. And I'm just going to go through real quickly as a refresher for new members of the board and to remind the public that we have been working diligently with our consultant, Weston & Sampson, on a DPW master plan and looking at and entertaining the idea for the potential possibility of a facility that is modernized and will fit the needs of the community better and long into the future. So thank you for your attention this evening. So the town of Londonderry has certainly invested in modernizing all of our facilities over the last 20 years in some capacity, either building a new one, you know, adding on to the library, renovating the senior center, or building, you know, entire firehouses and
It's
whatnot.
fair to say you feel left out. Out of sight, out of mind.
Maybe a little bit.
Out of sight, out of mind.
So there you go. What's missing, or perhaps overlooked?
But nobody can see where you are.
But we understand that you know, sometimes we fall down the pecking order list. But nonetheless, certainly, if I've done anything in the 3 years almost 3 years I've been here, I like to tell our story and bring that out into the open and really communicate that to the public and to the boards that make the decisions on how we operate within the town of Londonderry. So, at any rate, this is the time to discuss that. So, in my time that I've learned there, you know, a lot of DPWs are similar situations across the state, but there are a lot of them that are really have done a tremendous job at improving their departments and what have you, and understand the importance of it and why it needs to be done. But there's some pretty obvious ones when you come down to our site. There's some obvious site conditions, material storage challenges. Our equipment is outside, a good majority of it year-round. There are certainly some facility inadequacies, which leads to operational inefficiencies without our employees to be able to. It's tough enough, the job itself, as I just described, some of the things that we do, but when you got to work in order to go to work, and I'll get into that, it makes it a challenge, and you lose hours, and certainly it affects or creates some inefficiencies within what we do. There are certainly some conditions down there that cause me some great concern, like I was just illustrating about working out in the dangers. But after employees have worked long hours, we are exempt from how many hours we work, and it's not uncommon for employees to work 24, 36 hours, 48 hours straight. And so when they then have to conduct their normal workday or even perhaps go home at the end of their shift, I'm concerned with, the conditions and what they're subjected to. We certainly wouldn't want any employee walking out of this building or any of our other new facilities in the conditions that you'll see coming up at the end of their shift. So just to get into that a little bit, certainly our parking areas, a good majority of the entire property is not paved. And that causes obvious concerns with mud. We don't worry about getting dirty or getting mud on our boots and whatnot, but in the wintertime it causes a real problem. And as you can see from our sand pile on the right of the screen there, we don't have an adequate supply stored that's dry, so we're taking from that pile in the middle of the winter. In fact, that photo was taken after we just smoothed that out when the ACO came down and needed some and got the vehicle stuck in there, so we had to do a little assistance to pull them out. And so this is one of the things that we want to address on the site for obvious reasons. More of the conditions. Again, the mud then freezes. It's hard to plow mud and or ice. It's unsmooth. It creates slips, trips, and fall hazards. We have some drainage issues, obvious. That area, that corner of the lot over in the upper right-hand corner is where some of our employees park, but they chose not to park in that area because it was basically a hockey rink over there for a little bit. Speaking of the hockey team tonight, congratulations to them too, by the way. And so that's areas where employees got to walk across to try to get to their vehicle. We don't have any drainage, formalized drainage to speak of, so we have a lot of areas where water's running off or not draining properly and just sheeting off of our property. In the center of our yard, we have this rather crude detention basin, but really what happens is it fills up relatively quick, and it just kind of flows out to the back of the yard this way, which, as you can see, there's a man door here, so employees have to walk across that when it freezes over. And when we wash the trucks inside the building, we crack the door a little bit to let the water flow out of there, which is supposed to go into the pond, but instead it, again, it's overflowing, so it just flows out. So that's some of the things that we've really been looking at too, that, there's some things there that really need to be addressed just from that standpoint of DES stuff. But so our salt and sand mix shed, as you can see up here, it was built back in 1981 for $8,000. I'm sure it was a lot of money back then. But it only has a capacity of about 250 ton. I'm being pretty generous with that amount. So it clearly doesn't hold enough for when we use an average year of 2,500 tons. We're mixing it in the middle of a snowstorm, and that's not the ideal time to be doing that. And in the back of the picture, you'll see the first salt shed that they built in '86, and that has a 1,200 ton capacity. They're fairly small sheds for size for what our needs are. This building is the more modern one and certainly has good use for us into the future. And that is where we would propose that we would be able to mix an adequate amount of salt and sand to have a 1,500 ton capacity that can get us through several storms, if not, and then we can mix it up in downtime and whatnot and get it in there so it's dry. You can see the loader ramping it up here because the building isn't quite large enough, so we just try and push it right to the rafters and get in there as much as we can. So the two buildings together is 2,700 tons, but in a winter we usually use 3,600 tons. And I'm not proposing that we go and build a 4,000 ton shed, but we should have something a little bit more closer to what our actual needs are. And really all our construction material should be covered. This graphic basically shows, that nothing, whether it's our gravel, our stone, and our coal patch, which we use. Whoop, I'm going to go back on that one. Well, either way, thank you. Coal patch is what we use as a material to fill in potholes predominantly in the wintertime, but we don't have a hot box here, so we use it even springtime, summer. It's a crude way of doing it, but it's a good way to get you by for a little while until maybe the warmer months when you can go get hot top. And if we had a hot box, we could make better or longer lasting repairs of potholes all year round. But I wouldn't want to get into investing into a piece of equipment like that since we don't have a facility to put it in.
With Continental in town, I mean, we can go there, can't we?
What's that?
With Continental right in town, we can go there, can't we?
For hot mix, yes, when they're open. In the wintertime, they are not. There are facilities, though, that are open that we could go get hot mix in the winter months, January and February.
You really don't have any potholes.
Yeah, well, if we have a good one. Yeah, well.
In comparison.
Yeah, exactly. But we do have stubborn ones and whatnot, and so when we have to constantly send crews out there, it's a little bit of a problem. And you can see that they got crafty in covering it and trying to keep the snow and ice and rain out of it, and they use the old body of a dump truck, it looks like, and kind of cut it wide enough so that we can get the bucket in there. But at any rate, on the property, you'll see that we have 9 different storage structures all around the property that are a combination of old trailer units, some modular storage ones, some old sheds that were used on different parts of town. And we store everything we can in them, on them, around them, under them. And it's amazing how much stuff we've got that serves the town all year round, but safety horses and what have you, and barrels and whatever. And, again, this is some of the inefficiency I was talking about. Like if you have to get back in here to get, the jackhammer or whatnot, your roller's in the way. You can see that they're not all watertight. We get a little bit of mold going here. This trail is rather unpleasant to smell, so we let it air out typically before we have to really go in there. These are up on some crude concrete piers and whatnot. Again, trying to save space. We have a part of the property that dives off, but that's how they were erected back in the day. So we're looking to try to get away from that for I think what is fairly obvious reasons, and we'll get into some of that when we bring in Weston and Sampson's, and they'll be in probably by the end of May, hopefully before Memorial Day is when I'm trying to get them in here. So this is just, again, so that when we step in front of you, you're not like, well, where did this come from? We've already gone over this stuff. So I'll try to speed it along. I know it's getting late, but now bringing it to the inside, these are cutting edges that we use. Again, we took all the things off the floor and bolted them to the wall. Not necessarily the best way to do things, because if one of those cabinets comes crashing down, people can get hurt. But they're fairly well secured. But these are some of the things that we have to do because of the spatial needs that we have. We got tools in complicated areas, benches. We have height conditions where we're stacking stuff up higher and higher, so something can fall on people. They got to use ladders to get up there and get those boxes. These boxes up here are anywhere from 50 to 60 pounds. Have a lot of different types of lug nuts and bolts and what have you. The old break room, the old break room, 2 break rooms ago, we use as an area to store things. And limited work surfaces is another issue. This is actually our welding and grinding area. We should have a screen that we pull in front of that. We do have a temporary one that we can have, so if somebody's walking by, they're not getting the welders flash in their eye, or heaven forbid, parts of metal flying in the area they're working in. But a lot of times we'll shut things down to get things accomplished because we're in such tight quarters. The upstairs storage room for parts, for obvious reasons. Going up and down stairs, carrying heavy parts, awkward parts, not always the best way to do things. We've got our electrical panel here that's blocked often by different chemicals and what have you. And the ceiling heights are pretty short. Our chief mechanic is about 6'1", 6'2", so he's in a little bit challenged. Even myself at 5'10", it's a little bit challenging going up there sometimes for things you need. And this is the room that caused me the most concern. Is a lot of our stuff in this room is all flammable. It's used oil, crude oil, new oil, different sprays, lubricants, and whatnot. And none of these areas are ventilated the way they perhaps should be, and we have no sprinkler and fire protection in the building. So I'll kind of get through this one real quick too. This is obvious. I mean, here's all your equipment sitting outside in the weather and the elements all year round. There's a pretty good price tag to this stuff, and these numbers have actually even escalated since I did this presentation a year ago. So it's important that we consider some of the things that we'll be discussing in the future. And there's other elements that they deal with. A little short video here. The amount of rain that comes off, so the moisture and whatnot. Moisture, salt, snow, ice, it just attacks these trucks like you can't imagine. So yeah, they're underneath the canopy, but they're still subjected to a lot. And then we'll have mice and rodents and things move in there and, get in the carburetors and things of that nature and build nests, and it creates a problem. Let me move on here. There we go. Just again, back to the part shop. We don't have enough room to have a crimping machine on site, so what it ends up doing is causing us to buy a variety of hoses and whatnot, so that depending on which piece of equipment goes down, we can just kind of quickly put something together to at least keep it up in the middle of emergencies. But again, it's an inefficiency. And then what we got to do is undo it and order the right length hose at a later time, and then redo work that we did just in the moment of. Some obvious tight working quarters. Here I think there's actually an employee right there. He's about maybe 2 feet off that wall. The reason we slid that over there is because that truck was going to be a lengthy repair, so we didn't want to, jam up the whole garage. And other spare parts and spare tires and whatnot are in those trailers that we showed you earlier. Here's another employee trying to wash the truck, trying not to get into the mechanics area. I think I get another photo a little later on. So the main building that we do the working in was built in '71, so it's obviously 50 years old now. It's only about 3,200 square feet, and again, it just creates limitations. He's trying to wash this off. This guy's got an engine apart. Not a good combination. So they have to take their time and due diligence to make sure that they're not spraying and getting stuff on the mechanic while he's working on the floor. And I think there's some gentlemen right down there too. But when we want to rehab a machine and paint it, we got to close the whole building down because of ventilation purposes, again, with the fumes from welding and grinding. So
correct me if I'm wrong. Speaking of rehab, that excavator in that picture that you previously
that
showed,
loader,
I just want to point out that you guys did such a phenomenal job that our former fire chief did. You think that was a brand new machine?
He certainly did. Yeah, he's like, "Wow, you guys got a new loader? That's great." And we're like, "No, that's ours. We just painted it, made it look nice." So we
just go into the testament of
we ground off the rust, and we will get some more miles out of that. It's not our front end machine, but it's an important one. So when the front end machine goes on the road, like this last storm, that one can stay in the yard and continue to load. So it's important, and you don't want to lose a loader and not be able to put material in your truck. So yes.
Thank you.
Good observation. So again, I'll get this video going just to while I talk. But this is what I was referring to earlier. You can kind of see in the flick that this is at the tail end of a storm, but yet it's still snowing, sleet, freezing rain. We're kind of in a lull here, and so we don't have enough salt sand mix in the shed. So when we've mixed it during the storm, you can see when this truck gets loaded. I think I zoom in here, but you'll see that it clumps up on the screen. And so what the truck driver is doing now is trying to get it to go through the screen. So he's raising the bed, trying to get some of it to fall down in, let it come back down. So some of it goes on the ground. Certainly heavy, wet material is not what we want to really be working with. It makes the truck work harder, makes the truck be heavier than it needs to be. Sometimes it doesn't spread as great on the roads as well. It doesn't give a good scatter on the road. It'll just sit clumped in the center and it can be a problem. So that's just illustrating that. Sometimes we got to work outside. This was another truck that we rehabbed over here as well, and we did that outside on that truck because we didn't want to tie up the whole garage. But then we got delayed on that for some rain and what have you. So again, that just leads to an inferior product that we're using and makes the trucks work a So in 2015, we did build an employee building. It's still a little bit undersized. For the meetings we want to try and conduct in there, it's tight quarters, as you can see. The locker room is certainly undersized, and it's led to us using the old lockers in the old building where the guys keep some of their gear. They have a lot of different gear that they have to wear, whether if we're in a snowstorm or if we're out mowing brush, or if we're going to be, going out trying to break apart a beaver dam with waders or whatnot. They have a lot more gear than you'd really certainly think that they have. And then we have all this equipment that's, if we want to go mowing, we got to move the paint machine, or if we're going to go painting, whatever, we're constantly moving something to get at something, which is a challenge. And in this shed, if you want to get some ice melt, we got that. If you need some glass bead to go with the paint machine, we got that. If you need cement to go doing a basement repair, we got that. But everything's all piled on top of each other. And again, you can see there was snow and ice in front of that building that day, so that's a concern as well. We have limited backup power. Our garage right now does not have a generator that has full power, so we have limited equipment. And gratefully, one of the doors is still manual, so we can always open that. Again, and I want to really thank the council. They've always been a true champion of us in recognizing that we are a first responder. I've brought forward to you information about that before as well. And we take this creed pretty serious, and especially if nothing illustrates it more than the last storm that we just had. Red and blue working together with yellow, making sure that we all know the best routes around town and how we're progressing and clearing things and getting power restored to the town. And so I just want to, make it clear that, you're all pretty well versed in what the firehouses look like, what the police station looks like, and these are the conditions that your yellow first responders are in. This is our fuel pump that they got to fuel up at. It's obvious. This trailer here stores all our town signs, stop signs, speed limit signs. So when people slide and take it out, they got to go walk up these steps with no railing, and the picture doesn't do it much justice, but it's not level. They get inside a trailer that's pitch black, no light, no electricity, to try and find the appropriate thing and go out in the streets and work. It's a challenge, and your mechanic is dealing with these stairs and whatnot to try to get the parts, to get the trucks back together. And at the end of the day, that's what my concern is that slips, trips, and falls will happen. And like I said, we're down 2 positions right now, or we're down filling a position. We have one that's serving his country well right now, but nonetheless, that's 2 people that we're working without, which means everybody else is working that much harder, that much longer, getting that much more tired, that much more frustration. And the last thing I want is for somebody to get hurt. That's paramount. That's at the forefront of our minds all the time.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Have you had anyone get hurt or come close?
Oh, we've had injuries. Yeah.
You have?
Yeah. Absolutely. In the line of work and on property. Yeah.
So
thankfully they're minor. It's not like catastrophic, and it took them out for a while, but
yeah. But I guess more on property. What would you have attributed them to?
Mostly slips.
Slips?
Yeah.
Due to
pulling, something like that, or climbing on something that, There's been cuts and things of that nature that
of course,
kind of comes with the course.
Right, no, but this is more, in a way, weather-related and how the situation is at the site.
Yeah, and the guys are smart, too. I mean, they're just, they understand the environment they're in, so they're going to take their time on things, and they're going to make sure that, he's grinding or cutting something in there, not go in the garage, wait for another opportunity to go in and get what they need. So they're good about it. We stress safety all the time, but it's still a concern. Because even when you think things are going well, things can go wrong pretty quick, and this just adds to that stress.
Right, and with how our site is designed, it really contributes more to potential injuries down the line.
Correct. So. At the end of the day, that's where they're heading out, is in a parking lot like that. And I just ask, if you showed up at Town Hall and that parking lot was looking like that, would that be acceptable? Would that be acceptable at our firehouse or our police station, or anywhere in public for that matter? So it's time that we got to start taking these things serious, because we are tempting fate, and I don't want to have a worst case scenario on our hands because somebody got hurt, you know. At any rate, so moving forward, you know, that's what I'm encouraging is that we start talking about that. And so last year after this, you know, I came before the board looking to take a nice, long, serious look at these things. And so what have we done over the last year at Weston and Sampson? Well, all these items that I just talked about, we've discussed at great lengths. They came in, they interviewed all of the managing staff, upstairs, engineering, our admins, all the foremen, to discuss everything that I've just discussed tonight, as well as evaluating spatial needs and whatnot, and how can things, you know, work better. You know, I don't have all those answers, and so I think our team members are important to pull all into that discussion, and so that's what they did. They listened to all of that, and from that, they determined the appropriate square footage that that we need for all the tasks that we have to do, and then ultimately improve our response times, and increase the level of service that we provide, which I will say I believe is a high level of service. I'm not saying that we're not meeting the needs of the public, but there are some concerns and some safety nets that I don't see that does cause me a little bit of stress at night, that to worry about, you know, some challenges that we may see in the future. So we've obviously examined the current location. I had contemplated on going really global with trying to address a lot of other concerns, because overseeing a lot of the government side of things with the facilities and what have you, I hear about a lot of other spatial needs within town. And so I was considering an alternate location, but just some of the real initial feedback I heard immediately from some concerned members of the public, elected officials, managers, and whatnot, I decided to abandon that and not really waste too much time on, or tax dollars for that matter, really evaluating that alternate location. But we did look at all these other things. I'm going to just go through them real quickly. We've looked at fleet management for all the vehicles. The potential, one of the global areas was a dedicated fuel farm, a modernized fueling system that would help us with fleet management as well, identifying when vehicles' needs are for services and what have you, and that would ideally free up some space behind Central Fire. As you know, they're trying to do some training over there as well, with a new structure behind that, and they have the drop-off oil, waste oil, and we could bring that to this new facility as well. The freeing up of office space and storage space at Town Hall, forget that. That was going to be in an alternate location. Logistically, if that was right next door to this building, then that would have made sense. But to bring it down to 120 High Range Road would create more inefficiencies than I think would be that would meet the spatial needs in the town building. So potential for additional parking here, that's out, and relocating the drop-off service certainly out. But we don't know. You know, that may be something we could potentially entertain in the vicinity of our shop down there, if the town council so chooses to really wish to have a year-round drop-off center. Storage units for other departments, maybe that might still a little bit, but again, logistically, to have everything down there probably wouldn't serve some of the other departments well. Certainly not going to look at EV charging area. We don't have that need in the Public Works, and I don't see that in the foreseeable future for the types of equipment that we run. But it had been talked about, maybe police vehicles, town vehicles, and things like that at this site. So that's out. But solar panels on our facility down there, the size of the facility that we're looking at, certainly that's plenty of real estate for solar panels, and we certainly can entertain that idea and see what types of programs there may be out there that could fund us and help us with that. Wash facility is probably the most important thing. By getting your equipment inside and washing it more effectively and more frequently. I'm trying to get the equipment to last longer than 10 years, and we don't just draw a hard line and say 10 years is up, time to get a new vehicle. But there's times we're really trying to stretch a vehicle to make it to the 10-year line, and there's times we're even pushing that marker a little bit beyond it, as we had. Now, I will tell you this, that just as a side note, thank you with the support of the town manager and the town council and the taxpayers and voters of Londonderry. We've done a great job at making up for lost ground in that, and we're right back on track with vehicle equipment replacement. So the age of our equipment has gotten younger, which is great, but let's make sure we take care of it in the future. And so the list will go on, but we'll get into all that stuff when we have the consultant with us. And so, this is just a flash in the pan stuff, just some types of facilities that I've seen online. This is obviously a lot larger than what we see, but these are some that, could fit nicely down there, metal buildings, different types of facades and what have you, that can be done fairly efficiently and with a cost effective. This one I just chose because it looks like the police station. We want to be cool like the guys in blue,
How long have you been practicing that line?
But, some of us don't look good without a beard, so we'll just leave that. Speaking of looking good, I do want to give a very high level of praise and thank you. Last time I did this presentation, I was a little drib and drab, and I asked one question about how to put those little check boxes that you saw that I just did, because I knew enough to be dangerous with PowerPoint, but Kirsten really took my thing and just, do you mind if I do a little bit of this to make it look better in this and a little bit of frills, and I can need all the help I can get in looking better. So I really want to thank Kirsten for that. She's done a good job at spiffing it up a little bit for us here tonight. So thank you, Kirsten. Love this locker room. This is something, again, these lockers are the appropriate size for the type of gear that these guys have. It's clean. It's easy to sweep up after. There's no legs and whatnot on the table. Larger muster room, they call these, so that can be used as a lunch room. It can be used as a meeting room, your little, cooking area in the back. Certainly, large enough to meet the needs of the department is what we're looking at, and just expanding upon the building that we have now. And this is an extremely large garage, but I picked it just to show you that the types of things that we are looking for. We are looking for 3 bays. One that would be a drive-through style bay, so that if we have to tow a piece of apparatus back, we can simply open the door, pull through, drop it, and go. There's no backing in, and usually when we're towing something, it's usually in bad circumstances, and we don't have time to mess around. We wanted them to get the truck, get it back, or get it in the garage and beat feet. But we can service everything, and we're looking for something large enough to store all of our equipment inside, mezzanines for other storage and whatnot. That's seasonal usage stuff that we don't have to actually get at every day, but it needs to be somewhere high and dry and out of the way, and but accessible nonetheless. Certainly a modernized parts room where we're not reaching overhead too much, and bright and easy to find what you need. A nice size wash bay to wash our equipment properly. The ability for employees to go up on the catwalk safely to wash down, which is probably the most important thing when we're cleaning our trucks. And then again, that's what I'm speaking about your typical fuel farm. And you see the states, built theirs all over the state now. They've redone them. They've gotten away from the type of above ground type of cells, if you will. The thing that we use is kind of something you might see on a construction site more than at a permanent facility. So something like this would serve the entire needs of the town, be it school vehicles, police, fire, town vehicles, and as well as ours. And it'll capture all kinds of data at that type of a management system, so that we know exactly how much gallons is going on what vehicle, what the miles are, if it's coming up on service. It can capture a lot more data than simply, here's your employee code, it activates the pump, and there you go. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Well lit. Out of the weather, on a pad that meets the requirements of today. Even the pad at the fire department doesn't meet today's standards for, if you have a spill, you're supposed to have that chamfered kind of edge over there. You've probably seen that at most gas stations these days, and that's to stop that. So that's something that we're looking at. An adequate sized salt barn. This one kind of mimics the one that we currently have. And so really this is just a real quick, we're bound by the limits of not having a true modernized facility. We've had to hire just recently, back in March when we thought we were coming out of winter, but Mother Nature threw us some curveballs. We had to hire a vac jet to come in town, do some jetting of some culverts in town that we just couldn't. This method right here that a particular counselor dedicated, or I should say, gave this to us, donated this to us, and we appreciate that. But we use it with water, and then we try and use gravity to push through the pipes and clean them. But it rarely will work quite right. You need a high-powered, pressurized vac jet truck to come in. Street sweeping is something we got to get serious and talk about in this town. Whether we contract or do it in-house, we can't do it in-house. It's not an option right now because we just don't have a facility to store that in. But that street sweeping is part of our MS4 compliance. We could certainly do some more lawn mowing. We could get into hiring some maybe summer help that could help us with that endeavor. Sidewalks are a big topic in this town about why don't we plow them in the winter. Well, I think it's pretty clear in this presentation tonight why we don't. We just don't have the ability to. It's not that we don't want to. We don't have the ability to. I've talked about the hot box. We should be using something maybe a little bit better than the brine that we currently use. But again, we don't have the ability to place that type of system anywhere on the site. But the brine, you can usually use that in the early goings of the winter, in like November, sometimes in December, depending on temperatures leading up to an event, and sometime in the spring as well. So that's it. I'm sorry if I wasn't quick enough, but I just want to do the due diligence so that everybody understands when I come in here next to talk about all the things that we've studied, that it's fresh in our minds again. So I know it's been about a year now. So any questions you may have, I'll take them now.
Did you say earlier that Western Sampson and yourself will be making a presentation soon?
Hopefully. I'm targeting the May 20th deadline. Right now, we've got the site layout pretty well established. That took a few meetings to get that done for circulation purposes and flow and whatnot. But right now, they're working on the expanded areas and how they would lay out and the different storage areas and workshops and things of that nature. But obviously on financial requirements that we're looking at, a lot of the EPA stuff about the drainage on the property and what have you and things of that nature. So some of the technical stuff is what they're working on now. So we're hoping for May 20th. We'll see. If not, certainly in June.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I know Dave doesn't want to hear this, and I'm sorry.
That's fine.
The community has demonstrated no appetite for large bonds. The largest bond in the history of the town is $11 million. The largest bond on the town side is $6.2 million. I would ask the other councilors to think about this long and hard about considering a phased approach. Yeah. Because if we don't do a phased approach and we go with a big bang approach, we'll be having this conversation again next year.
Yeah, way ahead of you on that. And I hear that concern as well, and I learned that too as well, living in town for 25 years as well, understood and duly noted. And so we are working on that. We're looking at a phased approach, and actually it works out better for us as well, because if we were going to do it off-site, then it would make sense to do the big bang, just let them build it and turnkey, we move over there and whatnot. But where, we can't just turn our whole site upside down. I mean, this is, a project's going to take some time. And so, we're phasing it into what we consider to be the most important upfront stuff is the storage facility for the equipment. Protect the equipment first and foremost. That and the mechanics bay. That one unit will be attached to itself and whatnot. So that would be the first approach, and that's probably the most important, is taking care of the equipment. That's one of the paramount things there is improving site safety, but also getting more longevity and protecting the equipment that the taxpayers purchase each year. So we would do that in phase one. We can take a breather for however long the board wants to, a year, 2 years, whatever. Phase two would be the storage and conversion of the old building and adding the wash bay along with the spatial needs for the employee section of the building. So that would be the second phase. Again, another pause or whatever. And then lastly would be to build the fuel farm and the storage, the additional salt shed and getting all our materials into cover. So we will have the total price tag, if you will, if you did want to hit the nuclear bomb. But that's not going to serve us well to try and do it all one shot anyway. So
then it's going to need to be a have to have and a want. Mm-hmm. And you need to separate the numbers from the standpoint of this is what we have to have. Let's say we have to have is $5 million. Right. And let's say what we want is $10 million. Just using examples. The total may be 15, but the have to have is 5.
Yeah,
do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, and to get to those numbers, what I want to...
And I don't know if those are right numbers.
Yeah, no, I hear you, though, loud and clear, because I did attend a workshop meeting on this, and it had 3 different public works departments of different sizes, which was great. I was hosted by the UNHC Squared Center, and they brought in three DPWs that went through building new facilities. And there was a whole host of communities in there. There's probably 30, 40 other communities coming in, and they did their presentations on what they did, problems that they had, things to think about, phased approaches, everything that we talked about here tonight. And one thing that I learned from that too, as well, I know when all these facilities were built, was having some sort of a building committee that we sit down and we look at what you were just illustrating. And so I was, wanted to talk to the town manager about that, on that commitment, and see how that committee would be formed, how many people, people from what boards, people of the public that would sit in on that when we have something for them to even look at. Right now, everything's being developed and crafted. So, but that's something that I'm looking at as well, so that we do have something before we, want to say a warrant article or whatever it may be. That it's been, similar exercise that the school district has been undergoing as well. So,
would you also be considering paving the area as well?
Oh,
to
yeah.
Prevent slips and falls?
Correct, because a lot of that comes with the drainage and whatnot, and making sure that we're sending the water where we want it to be and treating it in treatment swales and detention ponds and whatnot. We shouldn't just be letting stuff sheet and or not, and freezing and what have you. So
yeah, because for that first phase, anything safety related, I think, is a have to take care of our people.
Right. The first phase is probably going to be the biggest bite because of just that, because a lot of that around that building and what have you, and in the general circulation in the front, it'll make more sense when we bring the presentation forward, but that stuff has to be addressed. So a lot of that goes away very quickly. So.
Good. Well, we look forward to that presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for this evening as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, moving on. Utilities Committee presentation and updates. Lynn Wiles, Chairman. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, Mr. Town Manager, Ms. Karen, Mr. Marr. My name's Lynn Wiles. I am the chairman of the Londonderry Utilities Committee. And with me tonight is Stuart Ormsby. Stuart is the vice president of Power Supply Strategies for Colonial Power Group. And on the phone is Bart Fromuth. Bart is the CEO of Freedom Energy Logistics. And they're going to be our partners moving forward with community choice aggregation. Just to give you a little bit of history, there was a municipal aggregation committee established back in January of 2023. After the Utilities Committee was formed, the task was delegated to the Utilities Committee via Town Council Resolution 2023-11. The last time I met with the council was to talk about this topic was in September of 2023, and I met with you to brief you on where we're at and get concurrence on moving forward with the Freedom Energy Logistics Group and the Colonial Power Group on this project. We're at a point in time where I thought it was important to brief the council on where we're at. This is actually a program that's going to save some money, so as opposed to spending some money, we're going to save some money for a majority of the people in town. So with that, I'd like to let Mr. Ormsby discuss what the Community Choice Aggregation Program is, what they will be doing for the town of Londonderry, and some of the things that they've been successful with so far to date.
Thank you. So before you, we've got a few slides to go through. I think this is some familiar territory for at least half the council members, perhaps fairly new to others. I'll probably try to go through these somewhat rapidly, but more than happy to circle back if you find I'm going too quickly. So I'll take your guidance on how quickly to go. So just a quick overview on what a community choice aggregation program is, and it's really providing an opportunity for electricity consumers in town, both residential and business. It gives them an alternative choice. So the vast majority of consumers currently take their power supply from Eversource, and Eversource provides sort of two distinct services. They're the wires and poles company. They're providing reliable service that would continue regardless, but the supply piece for better part of 2 decades has been open to choice for consumers. Now the reality is that the vast majority of residential consumers and some small businesses have not taken that extra step of shopping for their electricity supplier. Some do very well with that. But the vast majority are still doing it with Eversource. Community aggregation programs are somewhat new to the area. Massachusetts has been doing it for a better part of 12 or 15 years, but it is just getting started now in New Hampshire. The necessary statutory requirement was only passed just a couple of years ago. So you may have heard some of it in the news. Other communities have been moving forward on this. As Lynn teed up, we've been, myself as well as Bart Fromuth at Freedom Energy, have been talking with Londonderry for the last few years now, and been moving closer and closer to actually launching something with the town. So getting back to sort of what this is all about, the way the aggregation programs operate, they're called opt-out programs. And so what that means is the group of customers in town who are currently taking power supply from Eversource, they would automatically be enrolled in the program unless individually they select to not be part of the program. And it's an interesting component. It's kind of a necessary component because that provides sort of the necessary load for suppliers to have interest in bidding on. And sort of the key metric with this is suppliers can offer much better pricing when they're bidding on a large group of customers as opposed to individually one at a time with a customer. The other thing that the aggregation programs try to combat, if you will, they provide, like I said, an alternative choice not only for the Eversource power supply, but also there's some challenges even in the direct contracting environment. In other words, you commonly hear some sort of sad stories of third-party suppliers who use contract terms that are somewhat predatory. So you get that initial teaser rate, you're good for 6 months, you've saved some money, life goes on, you're not paying attention anymore, and in that 7th and 8th month, you're now paying 3 times what you were initially, and you didn't really realize it. So those savings you collected for the first 6 months have now been overtaken with losses, and if you're really not paying attention, that can go on for years, and we've seen lots of that firsthand ourselves. So anyway, it's all about just providing some new options for customers. And do we have a mouse to move that along? Oh, thank you. Thanks. Just some bullet points on the benefits of the aggregation program. Some I've already mentioned. It's offering choice. It's leveraging a large buying group. A few other key components that communities like to tap into. One is price stability. One thing that you as customers who maybe are taking Eversource supply, you've seen some pretty dramatic price swings over the last couple of years. Eversource just buys power once every 6 months. They follow a process. So they're not buying strategically on behalf of the residents. It's a state-required process. They buy in the spring, they buy in the fall. As Bart likes to say, the alarm clock goes off, they wake up, they buy power. It doesn't matter what's happening in the market. So the programs can be much more strategic. They can look for buying opportunities, locking into contract terms that make sense at the time. You know, when we were in sort of the COVID environment, prices just hit rock bottom. So with our clients in Massachusetts, we were signing them into long-term contracts and taking advantage of that. And of course, the converse is true too. If you're looking for power supply when prices are high, you try to stay sort of short-term, weather that situation until the market cycles back in the other direction. This program would be entirely self-funded. There's no resources on the part of the town. There's nothing coming from taxpayer funds. The administrative costs on behalf of Colonial and Freedom are built into the program. And we aim to provide a turnkey service. In other words, we don't want to cause any burden on municipal staff or local budgets. We try to have everything directed at us, all questions and so forth. And then finally, the last thing to highlight on this one slide, product options. And so what tends to be really attractive for consumers is not only to try to get the best price possible, but offer some other options, perhaps have some additional renewable content. So you can offer a 100% renewable product. It costs a little bit more, but for some customers that's really valuable to have that option as well. We already talked about this slide, just it tries to overtake some of the shortcomings of the direct electric market choice opportunities. Again, emphasis on this slide, you know, all the utility services that people currently enjoy, this doesn't disrupt that. So Eversource continues to keep the lights on. They're providing that reliable service. The billing still goes through Eversource. We're not talking about customers now getting a brand new bill that's confusing and perhaps surprising. The only thing that changes on that Eversource bill is a single line item. So instead of it being default supply from Eversource, it's now the aggregation program rate. Utility services, a customer may have budget billing with Eversource, taking advantage of energy efficiency programs or energy assistance, those sorts of things. Those continue without interruption. Now, a key question that a lot of people will ask is, can a program like this guarantee savings? And we can't. It's really about being more strategic, about providing options, and again, putting an emphasis on a bit more price stability over time. So what that can mean, for example, is you could have a 2-year fixed price contract as part of your program, and maybe there's a 6-month stretch where the Eversource rate dips below the program rate. But again, it's emphasis on program savings over the life of a contract. Now, an important element of this program, there's a lot of flexibility for customers. They can come in and out of the program. There's no entrance fee if you come in a year in after the program's launched. There's no exit fee if you want to jump out. So it is possible, if you really want to be attentive, to come in and out of the program if you see something better, either with a third-party supplier or with Eversource. So that's entirely doable. A couple other quick things. There are certainly a number of residents and small businesses in town that have solar on their roofs. In participating with Eversource's net metering tariff program, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, for those specific customers, they're probably better served staying with Eversource. And the reason is a lot of those installations result in time periods, particularly in the summer, when they're actually putting more kilowatt hours on the grid, so it exceeds the consumption at their house. And when they do that, Eversource is able to provide them a bill credit for that extra electricity that's going out into the grid. An aggregation program, not just Londonderry, but any of the programs in New Hampshire, are not in a position to provide that same credit that Eversource can. So we want to be very careful and not accidentally enroll those customers in the program and interrupt any of those credits they currently receive. So they can join the program if they've sort of done their own careful math and confirmed that, yeah, I'm better off in the program, and that's wonderful, but we won't automatically enroll them. Yeah, and then, of course, just over the life of the program, Freedom and Colonial will set up a dedicated program website where all the latest program details will be housed, all the reference material, Plenty of opportunities to call us, talk to us, email us, and we're constantly reaching out in terms of face-to-face visits, whether it's with the senior center, follow-up meetings with the council and so forth. That's an important thing to keep people informed along the way. So Lynn already kind of keyed up the actions that have taken place to date and next steps that we're anticipating making. So the committee was established late in 2022. Our companies have been working with the committee to create a plan. So we've drafted and we have a final draft plan prepared. Our next step is working with the committee to host 2 public hearings. That's a statutory requirement to take comments on, the concept of aggregation in general, but also the plan itself. We hope to do that in May. Once those 2 public hearings are completed, we'd anticipate coming back to the council for your final sign-off on that plan, if you so desire. That's not a statutory requirement, but we just put that out as an option for your consideration. Once the plan is completed, we would then file that with the Public Utilities Commission for their approval. They just have to make sure that we're meeting certain requirements set forth in the statute. They take about 2 months to review and approve those plans, and then that would allow us to launch the program when the market opportunities make it sense to do that. And so that could be as early as the third or fourth quarter of 2024, depending on market conditions. And then this last slide is just a few more important notes about what happens. So once the plan is approved, we would issue an RFP inviting suppliers to bid on the program supply. We would collect those prices, sit down with the committee and review those, sit down with the town manager, and make a decision on whether or not to sign a contract. If it looks favorable, we'd sign the contract that would have a designated term, including the starting date. We then would issue a mailing to all the eligible customers. Again, it's only going to go out to customers currently taking power supply from Eversource. We would hold another public information session about 15 days or so after the mailing goes out, answer more questions, help people make decisions on whether or not to be part of the program or not. And then we'd enroll all the customers who have not opted out at that point. So that's the fire hose presentation. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions from the council?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
How does your program, I guess, sift out people who are already part of the net metering program with solar panels?
The program may not be the best option for someone who's...
No, I'm wondering, how does it know that someone has it?
Oh, thank you. So when we get data from Eversource, Eversource is including indicators for customers that are on the net metering program with them. So we're able to identify who those customers are.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So I've done this myself where I've switched off of Eversource and I've switched back onto Eversource when the rates are more favorable.
Sure.
How does this differ from other third parties that you can sign up for?
Yeah, I mean, it's just another option. So let me first by emphasizing that for customers who like doing it themselves, that's fine. And so we don't want to interfere with someone's choice and desire to do that. So this is just another alternative. And I think what I don't just think, I know from managing programs elsewhere, just the sheer volume, you're going to get better pricing from power suppliers.
It acts more like a consortium.
Okay. Yeah, it's a large buying group, and of course you can, like I said, you can offer multiple products to consumers as part of the program.
Okay.
Anyone else?
How did you guys fare when Eversource had their big drop last February, and then another big drop this past July, and then again this February? How did you guys fare in these markets with that?
Right, and so specifically for New Hampshire, aggregation in general is just getting started, so there isn't any good data to answer your question. But back in Massachusetts, where we're managing about 100 programs there. I mean, you're right. When there are these price fluctuations every 6 months, like I said earlier, there can be times when the program rate turns out to be a little bit higher than the utility backstop rate. But I think some of the information we presented to the committee, if I'm not mistaken, is we've provided some of the net savings that we've realized in programs down in Massachusetts, and they've all achieved net savings over the life of their programs since they've been in existence.
And I think it was quite a shock to people when, it was 22, when Eversource really jacked up the rates, and then again that summer they went up even further.
Right.
And then there's the huge push to solar panels across New Hampshire to go into that metering program.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, boom, the rates dropped drastically, and then again and again.
Right.
I mean, unfortunately, it may hurt the net metering solar panel people, but also it helps the people without. And then you have people who sign on to programs like yours, who then they might have signed on at a certain rate, but now you're stuck there. When Eversource has dropped 50%, 50%, 50%.
Yeah, and fortunately, again, I mean, if there is a dramatic divergence in terms of that perhaps the Eversource rate drops, somewhat materially below the program, people can get out of the program and jump back onto Eversource. There's no exit fee to jump back and forth if they want to.
How long do you guys usually do contracts for?
It depends. I mean, it depends on what the market conditions are. If prices are generally high, we might only do a 6 or a 9 month term contract. If prices are really low on a historical basis, we might encourage communities to do at least 3 years or 3.5 years. Yeah.
So it's similar on alternative sources. You actually cannot change until the next billing cycle starts because they have to take the metering.
Correct.
Is that similar with your program?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The any customer transitioning in or out of the program, it can only occur on a metering date. Yeah. Thank you.
So over 20 years ago, when the power plant was being built, they offered to incorporate us into a community power authority. For many different reasons here in town, that didn't happen. It cannot happen now because the regulations changed with regards to that particular power plant that's here in town. So it was a missed opportunity. So to give you an idea, from a community power authority, had we established our own electric company, we would probably be paying half of what we're paying. We would be our own delivery service. It would be like having your own water system. We missed that opportunity. This is the only alternative if we are going to help people who, are challenged with understanding how to work the system. Mm-hmm. And we've been talking about this for almost 5 years.
Okay. And if I could just say a couple things too, Mr. Chair. So when we get to a point where we're ready to roll this out, present it to the council saying we're ready to roll this out. If Eversource has a rate that's still significantly lower than what Colonial Power can provide, we're not going to roll the program out. I mean, and the Utilities Committee is taking it, as part of our charter to keep an eye on market conditions and, and follow this and make recommendations, to the town, to the citizens of the town, to the town leadership, as to opting in versus opting out. We realize that opting, it's going to be an opt-out program. So, and people will have some challenge. There will be some people with challenges around that. But I think overall, it's a great opportunity to, paraphrase Mr. Farrell. I think it's a great opportunity for the town. I think it's going to benefit a significant amount of the town's population as well, especially over time.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Revision of Beautify Londonderry Committee charge. So it had been asked if the Beautify Londonderry Committee increase their alternate members by 2. Mr. Town Manager, do you have a presentation?
Yes,
on
the
that?
Administrative Support Coordinator will be presenting on this.
Wonderful, thank you. Good evening.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Council. I will be quick on this. Beautify Londonderry, as you might remember, was made a standalone committee back in September when the Solid Waste Committee was abolished for redundancy with town departments and the Utilities Committee. So when they were made a standing committee, they asked for a membership of 5 people, 5 voting members, which reflected their current commitment and what they thought they needed to sustain their operational capabilities. A characteristic of people who get involved with committees like Beautify Londonderry, and frankly most Londonderry committees, is that they can be very busy. And so the Beautify Londonderry would like to pursue the option of adding alternate members, which tends to be a standard option for town committees, to ensure that they can have a quorum, particularly in their busiest time leading up to their biggest events like the May 4th Beautify Londonderry cleanup and the one that they will have in the fall as well. So generally, for a membership of voting membership of 5, 2 alternate members is considered standard. That means that as long as there's 1 full member and the 2 alternates there, they can have a quorum. So that is Beautify Londonderry's request to amend their committee charge.
You just need a consensus from the council or a vote?
Just a vote.
Any questions or comments from the council?
Can we actually change a committee without posting it?
Without posting the intended change?
What we're actually proposing to do in the language proposed for it.
So because this is not a committee that is outlined in the administrative code or the charter, it's an ad hoc committee. It's entirely up to your discretion as the council.
What does council want to do?
I will make a motion that we make this change and have the Beautify Londonderry Committee to have up to 2 alternate members.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second, and we'll post for these positions.
Yes, they have to run for 2 weeks.
Perfect, thank you. So I motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and it'd be awesome to see lots of people at their cleanup 9 to 12 on May 4th.
Thank you, Ms. Hilden. Resolution 2024-07, acceptance of unanticipated revenue. Mr. Goody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under RSA 3195B, Roman 3B, this is a resolution to accept a $1,000 donation that was made by Bode Equipment to the Londonderry Fire Department. Bode has made similar donations to the Londonderry Police Department, and the council needs to accept it. Just of note, this does not require a public hearing because of the amount that's being accepted, and that's the matter that's before the council right now.
All right, thank you. Any comments from the council? Seeing none, I'll accept the motion to adopt Resolution 2024-07.
So moved.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. Approval of minutes, April 1st, 2024, Town Council minutes. Do I have a motion
So moved.
to approve in a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. Motion minutes are adopted. Appointments, reappointments. So a resignation of Jim Leary from the CONSCOM and a resignation from Barbara Mee from the Senior Resource Committee. So we've received notice that those 2 individuals have requested for resignation. Council votes to accept, correct? Any comments from the council? I would just like to thank Jim and Barbara for their unwavering commitment to the community, both on the CONSCOM Conservation Committee and the Senior Resource Committee. With that, I'll accept a motion to accept the resignation of Jim Leary and Barbara Mee.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. Thank you for your service. Mr. Town Manager, please have those positions posted.
Certainly, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Liaison reports.
I have one, sir.
Yes, sir.
Beautify Londonderry, as was just mentioned, has their annual event on May 4th from 9 to 12. If anybody has any questions, reach out to Joy, John, or myself. Be happy to have you guys at the event. And I ask my fellow state reps to come out and help us, and my fellow town councilors to also come out and help us on Beautify Londonderry. It would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dunn. Anyone else?
Yes. I'm the representative to the Rec Commission, and I've been seeing over the past couple of months of complaints here and there about our town playground at the Lawful Fields, although I guess it's not entirely considered the right location for that, for the naming. But I had gone out there with the town manager and Dave Wally to inspect, and we'll be coming forward as well with Arts Leaders and the Deputy Rec Commissioner for potential renovations or fixes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Liaison reports. All right. So for the school board, so Jason Perrin and his team recently presented a report showing significant academic improvement from the fall to the spring. Significantly, our students' proficiency in reading has increased by an average of 5 to 7%, and in math, they've seen an increase from 7 to 8 in the students achieving grade level standards. So these results surpass the benchmark set by the start of the start of the academic school year. Additionally, on April 17th, the superintendent and staff organized the K-5 forum focusing on addressing bullying. So this initiative had been, from reports, that was well received, and there are plans to extend these forums to middle and high school levels very shortly. Looking ahead, the superintendent will host an information session at the Moose Hill at mid-May to discuss the space needs at Moose Hill in the full-day kindergarten program, providing an opportunity for parents to learn more and ask questions. So that'll be mid-May date to be posted from the schools. Anything else, Mr. Liaison reports? Mr. Town Manager report, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Quickly, I'm pleased to announce that tomorrow applications will open up for the Leadership Londonderry class of 24 to 25. As you know, Mr. Chair, having been through the program yourself, this is a program that educates residents about the way the town operates and seeks to generate opportunities and interest in volunteering. It'll run once a month from September to May. And with the assistance of Pollyann Winslow, Mark Oswald, it's going to be jointly administered between the Town Manager Department and the Rec Department. And those applications will continue to be accepted until July 31st. So that's Leadership Londonderry. There was a question last meeting about trolley car and what the plan is for paving. It is on the list for this paving season. So the folks down there can watch out for that sometime in the near future. And then lastly, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to flag something. I had a conversation with a member of the community who I have a lot of respect for today, actually. And he suggested that the one option to figure out what to do with the Lions Hall is to designate a committee. It was a reminder for me that budget season is going to come fast. And we need to start thinking about what, if anything, we want to look at with the Lions Hall. So I wanted to flag that for the council's attention. And that is all I have this evening, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Assistant Town Manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week I attended a Regional Economic Development Committee meeting where I provided an overview of Woodmont Commons, an update for them, Technology Hill, our newest planned unit development, as well as many projects that we have going on at Pettingill Road so that we can keep our regional partners apprised. You'll also notice, and that was raised during public comment, that the planning department section of our website is going through some changes. It's under construction. We're working on placing the information in one area that doesn't require as many clicks. We're also working on a better way to provide information about our active projects. That's a request that I hear often, so we are working on that. And lastly, May is a very busy month at the Planning Board. We have 3 meetings, May 1st, May 8th, and May 9th. As was mentioned by the Chair of the Planning Board, the May 9th hearing is a special meeting specifically for the Technology Hill PUD.
Thank you, Madam Assistant Town Manager. So with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and a second. Folks, next meeting is May 6th here in the Moose Hill Council Chambers at 7 p.m., followed by May 20th, same place, same time. With that, I'll take a vote. All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. We are adjourned.